I think I only ever really want to have one rule for this second YouTube channel, like a guideline that I follow, and that guideline is I never want to feel afraid to post anything here. I never want to feel afraid that something won't land well with my audience. On my main channel, GBay99, there are certain video ideas. There are probably hundreds of video ideas I've had over the years where I've never been able to actually go through with making the video because it's something that I know it's not something that will land well. It's not something that that audience is interested in. It's not something that people would... I could make that video as good as I possibly could. It could be a phenomenal video for whatever it is I'm trying to talk about, but because it's a subject that just doesn't interest those people, it doesn't matter. It would be a video that would be heavily disliked and make people unsubscribe and everyone would hate it, no matter how good it ended up being. Now, that is what I never want to have happen with this second YouTube channel. The second YouTube channel is supposed to be a place where I can just feel free to talk about anything that I want to talk about, and any ideas or subjects or whatever I want to communicate. I never want to feel afraid that it won't land well with you guys. This is just supposed to be a place where I can talk about things freely and not have to worry about that kind of stuff. So, with that being said, today we're going to talk about one of my favorite things in the world, and that is sports. Particularly, I'm going to start this off almost as an introduction for those of you that don't know much about sports, don't care about sports. I'm going to talk to you guys and talk about what it is that makes sports so great, in my opinion. Sports are something that I never get to talk with anyone about, and maybe that's why I want to talk about it now a little bit. Like, everybody that I know is a nerd. Everybody I know is a stupid nerd. My mother and little brother, little sister, almost everyone in my family is a big stupid nerd. They can't, oh my god, it's ridiculous. I try and talk to them about sports and they just stare at me with the most blank look on their face. My dad is the only person I know that follows sports regularly that I can talk to him about some of these sort of things, and I see him like once a week. All my friends that I know in real life are pretty big nerds. A few of them every once in a while play fantasy football, but they never really know much about it. And all of my friends online are people that play League of Legends, people that sit at the computer all day, people that don't do anything sports related, and they never follow anything sports related. So I'm just sort of on my own to talk to myself about, the exciting things that happen in the sports world. And right now, there's a lot of exciting things happening. Obviously we have all the soccer leagues, all the association football leagues in Europe going on, Bundesliga, BBVA, BPL, but we also have the Champions League going on. In North America, we have Selection Sunday, was this past Sunday, for the NCAA and NIT tournaments for college basketball, and maybe most exciting of all is free agency started like 5 days ago for the NFL, and holy moly, the Packers signed a free agent. The Packers signed 2 free agents already, 2 tight ends, including Martellus Bennett, who was a phenomenal tight end replacing Gronkowski when he was injured for the Patriots, and oh my goodness, I could not be more excited about that signing because Richard Rodgers is a great player. He's a great wide receiver. He had that insane Hail Mary catch against the Detroit Lions a year or two ago, but he also sucks at blocking, and he lost us the NFC Championship game against the Cardinals last year, or the game to get into the NFC Championship game against the Cardinals, with his terrible blocking that caused like a safety and all sorts of shit. You're a great player, dude. I love you, man. You've done a lot of good stuff for us, but we actually have to have a tight end that can block. But also there's exciting things going on, like TJ Lang, one of the best guards in the game, left us because he was asking for a lot of money because he is one of the best guards in the game, but we can't spend our salary cap giving $10 million a year to a guard just because he's one of the best guards in the game. We gotta use that elsewhere. We already have a pretty good offensive line, and the Packers' defense, on the other hand, isn't looking too hot. Oh my god, it's so exciting! I can't wait. I can't wait for the draft. The draft is in about a month. But anyway, now that I've scared away all the people that this video was intended for, people that don't know much about sports and probably got bored or scared with me ranting about that a little bit, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. Let's talk about what it is that makes sports appealing. So, firstly, the number one thing that makes sports appealing is the number one thing that causes a disconnect between a lot of people that I would classify as nerds, people that are like me, where you sit around all day on a computer, you don't go outside as much. I mean, a lot of people don't go outside enough anyway because they're either inside all day at school or at a work, at a job or something, and when they get home, they just want to relax and watch TV and play video games and yada, yada, yada. So most people either just go to the gym a little bit to maintain their health, or they don't go to the gym at all, and they just sit around inside playing video games all day. That's basically me for the most part. I'm not knocking you guys too much. You live the exact same life that I do. Anyway, I think the number one disconnect there is, in sports, one of the coolest things is that when you're watching a sport, you're watching human beings do something that 99.9% of human beings will never be able to do in their entire life. For instance, the fastest I've ever gone in a car was when I was with some friends and we were racing a guy on the highway. We were going about 100 miles an hour down to the movie theater, and that was one of the stupidest things we've ever done. But yeah, that's the fastest my body has ever physically moved in a car, was going 100 miles an hour, maybe a little less, 95. I've watched baseball games live where a pitcher will consistently throw a ball over 100 miles an hour. He consistently throws a ball over 100 miles an hour again and again and again. Think about how long a baseball game is. Think about how many pitches there are. Think about how many times he's throwing a ball 80, 90, 100, 110 miles an hour. That's insane. Not only is he doing it that fast, he's throwing it with pinpoint accuracy. Just squeaking into the box, squeaking into the batter's box, just barely making it. So he's not only throwing it incredibly fast, but he's throwing it in a way where the batter is never going to be able to hit it. And it's insane. It's insane seeing, that's baseball. That's one of the more lackadaisical, that's one of the more relaxed, and some people would call it a boring sport. I think baseball is really exciting and fun because in baseball there's never a deficit that you can come back from, or you can't come back from, right? So like if you're in the extra time of a soccer game, an association football game, and you're down 3 goals, you're never going to be able to make that up and win the game unless you're playing PSG. If you're in an NFL game and you're down 3 touchdowns with 50 seconds left on the clock, you're never going to be able to win that game. You can't score 3 touchdowns in 50 seconds. But in baseball, it could be bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, you're down 100 runs. You can theoretically come back from that and win if you're good enough. And that's one of the cool, exciting things about baseball. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. One of the things about sports in general that makes it so exciting is that every single person on a field is doing things, just basic things that the majority of people can't do. This is kind of obvious sometimes when you see insane, one-handed Odell Beckham catch out of bounds, or some whatever crazy catch in the NFL, or a bicycle kick in soccer, in whatever league, or in basketball, a dunk. A dunk is one of the things that a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to do, because not only when you dunk a ball do you have to be able to jump high enough to reach the rim and tall enough to reach the rim, but you also have to be going up against defenders that have this insane power. These guys that will not let you near the basket if you are not strong enough, and being able to muscle your way through and then just reach up and dunk the ball. It's a huge feat that a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is. If you want to see just how difficult some of the things that players do is, try this. Take a basketball, find a basketball somewhere, and try running up and down the street dribbling it. Dribble it while running up and down the street. If you can do that, go and try and do that. That is a surprisingly difficult thing to do. Oh, shit, hang on. I misspoke. Try and do that without looking at the ball. That's something that is a pretty difficult thing to do. Just dribbling and running isn't that hard. I mean, maybe it is for some people, I don't know. But try dribbling and running up and down a street without looking at the basketball. That's something that's what they cut you for the first day of tryouts in middle school or high school. They'll have you run up and down a court. They will tell you, do not look at the ball and dribble it. If you lose control of the ball, you're off the team. That is the most basic thing that 99.999% of people, you have to be able to do that. Every basketball player can do that. You have to be able to have that coordination to not look at the ball while dribbling and running up and down a court. But most people don't realize how difficult that is. How difficult it is to, some people have trouble dribbling a ball, particularly when they're younger, but being able to do it without even looking at it while running, that's something that's a lot tougher than you might realize. And it cuts 50% of the people off the team at tryouts every year that a school or whatever is trying out players for a basketball team. And that is just one of the easy things. That's like the most fundamental thing in basketball, is being able to dribble the ball, not even do anything fancy, dribbling it between the legs or whatever, and making a jump shot. That's the most basic fundamental thing, and I think that's something that you can look at pretty much every sport, and you'll see players doing things that they make it look easy. They make it look like anyone can do it. Just being able to do whatever the fundamentals are of a sport that 99% of people actually have a little bit of trouble with. And if they were to try and do, they would have to practice quite a bit. But particularly, when you see players doing things, they just make it look so easy that it's hard to appreciate it if you don't go out and try and do that yourself. If you don't go out and try and see the peak capabilities of your body, you don't realize how insanely athletic these people are, and how it's a miracle of nature watching them do some of the things that they do. It's sort of like, you know how every time the Olympics comes around and you're watching the races, you're watching the running, and people will say that they should just take an average Joe from the crowd and throw him down there so you can see even the guy in last place who looks like he's an idiot because he's so far behind. Even he's running twice as fast or 3 times as fast as the average human being would be able to do. That's the sort of thing that if you were to apply that to most sports, you would see how ridiculous it is, all the things that the people are doing. You know, an offensive lineman in the NFL, the big fat guys that protect the quarterback, they can run like 15, 20 miles an hour. They run incredibly quickly for these big fat guys because they have to be incredibly quick off their mark to defend the quarterback and be able to move around. I mean, that's something that you don't think about. You don't think, holy moly, these big fat guys are able to run faster than I am. How the hell is that possible? That's the sort of thing that you don't really take for granted, because when you see them on the field and you see all these top athletes against each other, it doesn't look that hard, because there isn't like one player that's obviously so much better than all the others and you're like, wow, he's doing something that's incredibly tough. Every single player out there is doing something that's incredibly tough. And that's the number one disconnect that I think a lot of people have, that if you just sort of take some of those things into consideration, then it just blows your mind, the things that you see during a competition. And that leads me into my second point. The second thing that makes this so exciting is the level of competition, right? If you play League of Legends, if you ever get that desire to win, seeing those players with that desire to win, while, there isn't a balance out there, there's no patch notes out there that balance teams. It's all players that, if you want to buff your player, you go and you work out and you become stronger, quicker, more agile, more fast. That's the balance in most sports. And seeing the drive and the level of competitiveness, it's a really exciting thing to watch if you're into that kind of competition thing and you don't just play games for fun. I would assume a lot of you guys don't just play League of Legends for fun. But also, it gets a lot of great personalities out there. That's one thing that if you ever think that in League of Legends there's like a bunch of boring personalities, or if you think in League of Legends there's a lot of great personalities. If you think Doublelift is a great personality, or if you think he's a antagonist, a bad personality, he is nothing compared to what you will see in normal sports. If you watch... you could just look at Luis Suarez, who keeps on eating people. Like, he keeps on biting people. That's something that you don't see that often in LCS. Or if you're looking at North American sports, particularly the NFL, Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco, one of my favorite players. I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan. I named my channel and all my usernames after the Green Bay Packers. That's where G-Bay comes from. But being from Cincinnati, I can't help but root for the Bengals quite a bit. So one of the greatest players the Bengals has ever had, I'll say that, is Chad Johnson. He was this wide receiver for us throughout the 2000s. And one of the things about him was he was so funny. He would constantly be getting in trouble and getting fined from the league for all these hijinks that he would have. For instance, in the NFL, there's fouls every once in a while. A player will do something illegal and he'll get fouled. But a lot of the times when a foul happens, it's a little bit controversial, right? Because, for instance, in the NFL, there's some things that are subjective, like holding. Holding is a little bit of a subjective thing. Or if a wide receiver and the guy covering him are having a little bit of a tangle when they're going out, is that defensive pass interference or offensive pass interference? That's some of the things that referees debate a little bit before they make the call. And so there was a foul in a Bengals match where I think it was something that was going on where it was a controversial call. Nobody really knew which team it was going to be called on. So Chad Johnson goes over to the sideline. He grabs $1 from one of the coaches or one of the players, and then he brings it back out to the referees and gets in the referee's huddle, and then he tries to slowly slide the $1 over to them. He's like, hey, why don't you take this and call in favor of the Bengals over here? He got fined like $10,000 for doing that. But that was the sort of thing that he did every single game. And there's a lot of different players out there like him that will have these hilarious moments throughout a game, whether it's someone that's just having fun or someone that's doing something that's a little bit rude like that, or if it's someone that's doing something a little bit more mean-spirited, like taking a little bit of a dirty hit on someone that they're having a scuffle with, like Josh Norman and Odell Beckham a couple seasons ago, where they had this game that was absolutely disgusting how they kept on hitting each other and pulling each other's hair. There's a lot of storylines and personalities to follow, and even nowadays a lot of people say that the NFL is getting a little more boring because the league is trying to crack down on that kind of stuff. But even now, you still have great personalities that do these sorts of things, like Marquette King, the punter for the Raiders, is one of my favorite players right now. Last year, he had a moment where they were playing against the Bills where you're not allowed to run into the kicker in the NFL when a kicker is, or a kicker or a punter, where, like, after they punt the ball, they're sort of defenseless and they could get hurt if you tackle them or run into them, so you're not allowed to touch them after they punt the ball. And he punted, someone ran into the kicker, so the refs threw a flag, and then he knew that the Raiders were going to get a 15-yard penalty, they were going to get a first down and be able to keep the ball. So he picks up the flag and starts dancing with it, and then then he gets a foul called on him for using a prop or something. And it's so great watching all this happen live. And then some Bill pointed out to the referee that he was doing that, and then they threw a flag on him, and then he was tweeting on Twitter after that the Bill player snitched on him. It was one of the funniest things that you see, and you see that sort of thing happen every single game. Not every single game, but every single season. There are multiple games where you have all these funny things happen, and all these great personalities to follow. That's one of the things that can really kill a sport, in my opinion. Like in EULCS, it's really boring. EULCS is really boring because there aren't a lot of storylines, there aren't a lot of rivalries, there aren't a lot of big players that are going out and making rambunctious claims or doing fun things to entertain everybody. They're just playing the game, and a lot of the games are don't have a lot of action and are a little bit boring. So you can see how boring a sport can be when you don't have that happen. But in traditional sports, that happens all the time, in every league, in every sport all across the world. That's a great part of it. But finally, the last thing that I gotta say is the last thing that makes sports so great, in my opinion, is the strategy that goes into it all. A lot of people look at sports and they say, look at all the downtime that there is. Look at all the times in soccer or association football where players are just passing it around the back, defenders are just passing it around the back line, and nothing's going on. Nobody's going to score, nothing exciting is happening. Or you look in the NFL and look at all the commercials, look at all the downtime where players aren't actually in the middle of a play and they're calling the next play or whatever. Look at all the times that things aren't happening that makes it a little bit boring. That's where all the strategy comes into play. And again, I'm the kind of guy that loves Football Manager, so maybe I'm a little bit biased here, but strategy is so complex and fun to watch in sports, particularly in the NFL. Think about the NFL like this. You have all these different archetypes of players where they're doing all these different things every single play with immense complexity. Every single offensive lineman and defensive lineman is like in the middle of a sumo wrestling match on the line of scrimmage every single play. The quarterback is trying to read a defense, see down the field, make a correct decision, and then throw a ball with pinpoint accuracy down to a receiver. The receivers are trying to run routes while the defense is trying to cover them, either in a man-to-man coverage or a zone coverage. There's a spy on the quarterback, a linebacker typically, that's going to make sure the quarterback doesn't take off and run. And there's all these complexities that are going on in between every play, and that's just during one play. Then after that play, both teams saw what happened. Both teams know, okay, here comes the next play. You have these offensive and defensive coordinators that sit in these booths, these guys that get paid millions of dollars, all to try and dissect and figure out. It's like watching two armies go to war. It's like watching a battle in medieval Total War where you have all these generals and all these smart, brilliant minds that are trying to figure out, what are they going to do next? How can we plan against that? How can we cover their options? What's their best option now? What are they going to do? Are they going to run it? Are they going to pass it? Are they going to do some play action? Are they going to do a trick play? There's all these different formations and different things that go on that when you really start paying attention to all of it, you see there's a ton going on. It's like watching a chess match where you have all the different pieces moving at the same time. Or even better, it's like watching a StarCraft match. A match of StarCraft where all the armies, every individual unit has its own mind and all has to think independently but work together at the same time. And instead of having one player against another, you have like 20 players all controlling one army playing against 20 players on another army. And all the armies and all the players that are controlling them, they have a play. And then after that play, they all regroup and they all talk about what went right, what went wrong, how do you strategize against the next one, what did you learn about your opponents, and then you do it again and again and again for every play, for every drive, for every possession, for every quarter, for every half, for every game. And you multiply that so often. There's so much thought that goes into sports that people don't take into consideration. A lot of people look at sports and they see, whatever muscular jock dude that's just a dick from high school, and they're like, oh, that guy's dumb. He's an idiot. He doesn't get good grades. He gets help from the teachers because he has to pass his classes so he can go off to college and be a good NFL player. You think that, but there's so much going on. There's so much going on. Every player has to be incredibly smart, incredibly, thoughtful, on their feet, on their tiptoes, ready to make a play, ready to adjust to every crazy thing that happens in the game, everything that goes on. And it's such a joy to watch. It really is a joy to watch if you can follow it, if you can pick things up and start paying attention to it all. And this happens in every single sport. I'm most familiar with NFL because I've followed it my entire life, but it happens in every single sport, and it really is an absolute joy to watch, particularly when you follow a team and you stick with them, and then you see them eventually, they have all these problems that they try and fix season after season after season, and then they go and they have a miracle season where they're able to run all the way to win a championship. That's the sort of joy that you get from watching sports, and there really is nothing like it in life, in my opinion. In my opinion. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed watching today's video. I'll see you all tomorrow. Until then, thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day.